I was wondering how many of you really get into these reality shows, and it's so much so that you find yourself wanting to participate at times. So I don't know if I'll do it or not, but this is probably the last year I'll be able to compete in American Idol. I think it's age 28 that is the cutoff date, and so I'm thinking about doing that this next year. And they go through, and I know some of the people in the church they've went and done this, where they go and they line up, and there's thousands of people, and you just get a moment, of time that you get to sing, and just hopefully they pick you out of that crowd. And for those that do, they get to move on and finally make it to, the live show there in Hollywood or Los Angeles or wherever it's at. You're just like they just pick you because you're a freak, And I always enjoy those, because they get on stage and they begin to sing and they're doing things, and you're just like, that person cannot carry a tune in a bucket, and you wonder sometimes, because you're like this, you're like, do they not have a mama that cares? Because surely, I know that, you have love for your children. I know that beyond a shadow. You have love for your friends, but somebody's got to be honest with these people, and just tell them right up front, you can't sing. You shouldn't stand in line with 8,000 other people and waste your time, because when you get in front of not just the judges, but the judges before the judges before the judges, they're going to tell you can't sing and you're not going to go on any further. But for whatever reason, we line up 8,000 at a time, and we try to do that. Maybe a better show for some of us would be The Voice, because we're older than 28, and they don't have to look at us, so that helps some of us out that are not as good looking as others, that we can go in front, and it's like this, they got their backs turned to us, so at least we got a hope and a chance that if we can sing just a little bit, that they're not gonna not pick us, just because I'm ugly. And so I don't know. I like these reality shows. I really do. I like to watch them. In the back of your mind, you're always saying, "Man, if I was on that, they'd pick me." They would. Just my charisma, whatever. They'd pick me, wouldn't they? And so that's what keeps you watching, is that you think that just maybe, there was a chance when I was in my game that might take place or happen. Well, I don't know how it went down with Jesus, but I do know this. I do know that it was reality. I know that it was real. And I do know that as he walks along the Sea of Galilee, that he begins to pick and choose those that he's going to bring closest to him, And it must have been something there with those disciples as they were fishing or whatever they were doing at the time, when this guy comes up and he says, "Hey, I've been watching you for a second, and I'd like for you to follow me." And in that moment in time, those guys make that decision whether or not they're going to leave their families, if they're going to travel with him. What a big decision that would be, to see Jesus, maybe have heard of him, but not followed him yet, and for him to come up and say, "Hey, here's your opportunity," and for you to say, "This is my big break in life. If I can follow him, if he chooses me to follow him, then I think my life can completely change. It'll be totally different than what it is right now." And so he does that for 12 individuals along the way, and they say yes to him, and they begin to follow him. Now, I just want to kind of pull some things out of the air here real quick. Disciples and what they saw. Thousands of people on a hillside, no food, Jesus prays over a small amount, all of them are fed. Miracle takes place, it happens. Man, the guy can kind of back up his story, can't he? I mean, he's not just all talk. This guy can really make it happen. And so, if I'm one of the 12, I put myself in their shoes for a moment. I'm thinking, okay, there might be something to this guy. You know, if he can pull these type of things off. A friend of him passes away. He mentions his name. Just his name. And he's raised from the dead. Now, if I'm a disciple at this point, I'm saying, okay, the food could have been in pockets, but this dude was dead, and you just mentioned his name, and he pops up. All of a sudden, I'm just like, Jesus, you are the man. I mean, if you can do that, I'm 100% in, you know? And so he doesn't just do things like this one time, but he does it over and over and over and over. So if anybody in the world should be sold and completely sold out to him, it would be those 12 guys that watched him throughout this ministry that he has and saying, wow, it's real. I've watched it over and over and over. But I want to read to you Luke chapter 22, verses 4 and 6, and then we're going to skip down to 14 through 22. It says, Judas went to talk with the chief priests and the officers of the temple police about how he could help them arrest Jesus. If you don't know, Judas is one of the 12. He's one of those that watched this take place. They were very pleased and offered to pay Judas a sum of money. He agreed and started looking for a chance to betray Jesus when the crowds were not around. And when the time came for Jesus and the apostles to eat, he said to them, I have very much wanted to eat this Passover meal with you before I suffer. I can tell you I will not eat another Passover meal until it's finally eaten in God's kingdom. So Jesus took a cup of wine in his hand and he gave thanks to God. And then he told the apostles, those that were with him, take this wine and share it with each other. I tell you that I will not drink any more of the wine until God's kingdom has come. And Jesus took some bread in his hand and he gave thanks for it. He broke the bread and he handed it to the apostles. And then he said, this is my body, which is given for you. Eat this as a way of remembering me. All of those disciples are there with him. They're watching, they're listening to what Jesus has to say. It says, after the meal, he took a cup of wine in his hand, and then he said, this is my blood. It's poured out for you. And with it, God makes his new agreement. And then this next sentence that said, the one who will betray me is here at the table with me. And hearts sink. The Son of Man will die in the way that has been decided for him, but it'll be terrible for the one who betrays him. And so here we are, and Jesus is sitting at the table with those men that he's invested in for so long, and he tells them, he knows that it's coming, and he knows that one of them that are there is the one that's going to meet him in that garden. It's going to be the one that kisses him on the cheek. It's going to be the one that turns him over to those chief police to be arrested, later to be obviously put on a cross and suffer and ultimately die. If I was Judas, I wouldn't have done that. There's no way, knowing what I know about Jesus, that I would have done that ever. And I just wonder if that's what Judas thought too. He has a free will. And I don't know. If you don't agree with me on this, then let's talk about it after the service. Jesus might have known that Judas was going to betray him, but I don't for a second believe that God made Judas do that. You have a free will. You get to decide what you're going to do. I think at any moment Judas decided not to betray Jesus, that he had a free will to be able to do that. And there would have been somebody else. I don't know who or what their name would have been or what they would have looked like, but I know prophecy would have been fulfilled, but I don't know for sure. I don't know if it had to be Judas. I don't know. I never read anywhere. I don't remember reading anywhere where it says in prophecy that a man named Judas will betray him. And like I said, if I got that wrong, somebody come up after the service and let me know. But I just don't remember reading it anywhere. So I think that Judas has this free will and this choice. And if I'm Judas, I'm saying I'll never, ever, ever do something like that to you. But here it happens in these scriptures where Judas goes and for a small amount of money. This doesn't set Judas up for life. This isn't like Judas is going to retire on this amount of money that's given to him. It's a small amount of money that he goes to these men and he says, if you're looking for somebody to help you out, I'll be that guy. And so you have to wonder, and it's not in the scripture anywhere, but you have to wonder what goes through Judas' mind to make him do these type of things. And I think it's simple when you break it down. I think it could be one of many things. Did he feel like an outcast among the friends that he had? Had somebody said something to him within inside that group that set him off and he just didn't feel any longer like he belonged? I don't know. It doesn't say that in the Word, but there had to be some type of events. This is not fiction. This is real life. And so we read these stories and we have this glimpse, just this portion of it, but this played out not over just the moments it takes to read. It played out over days of time. Things start to change in Judas' life for some reason. And he finds himself in a situation where he's debating. He's choosing for himself. He's deciding with his own free will. Am I going to take this man that has invested so much in me, and am I going to hand him over? And then somehow, some way, he has to rationalize it in his mind, right? Well, if I don't do it, somebody else would have. I could take the money that I'm getting and I could give it to the poor, and it would help those people out around me. Nobody's going to find out that I really did it, I don't think. It's amazing how our lives are. Because we'll say we'll never. And then all of a sudden, when we begin to rationalize things in our mind, we realize that we will. I just wonder if Judas just realized that he was taking our place. I just wonder if Judas ever thought that he's talking about dying, he's talking about going through all of this, and that in just a few days he's going to take our place. And all of the guilt and all the shame and all the things that I could never make right with God in the past, it's going to be made right soon. But Judas never could see the cross. He just never seen it coming. He never even imagined it looks like. For some reason, there was no hope, there was no life, there was no reason to live, because after Judas was told that he was going to do these things, he leaves that place and he takes his own life. The wages of sin, the things that I do wrong, the times that I compromise my faith, the times that I rationalize my actions, the times in my life that I try to tell myself that what I have done is not that bad, brings forth death. A few weeks ago, I drive down the road and I pull up the drive, and there's police cars and ambulance and different things over here at the beginning of the park, and there's crime tape that's stretched across. Just right here by the church. And I thought, that is strange. And so I walk in, I talk to the guys about what's happening, and they had showed up earlier that day than I did. And it's just like you knew what happened. I mean, you didn't have to guess what was going on. These guys had kind of walked down the parking lot and kind of looked across, and the police officers waved them back, and they came back up. And later on, you find out that somebody that night before had taken their life not 200 or 300 feet away from our church. And you think, really? Just right there. And they decided to end it all. Their life was so bad that the relationships that they had in their life had gone south. They felt like there was no hope, that there was no reason to live, that whatever they had went through before had brought them to this place. And obviously they could not see past where they were to know that there was hope on the other side. She didn't know. I promise you, she didn't know that he took our place. Because if she really knew that he took our place, she would be here today. And so would Judas. Judas wouldn't have taken his life if he would have ever looked beyond his circumstances and ever looked beyond his situation and ever looked beyond the disappointment that he had caused and seen what Jesus was doing. It would have changed. And I can prove that to you. Look at Acts chapter 2, verses 22 through 28. Here's another disciple that has his own free will, that he gets to choose also what he wants to do. And the words that are written, it says, "Now listen to what I have to say about Jesus from Nazareth. God proved he sent Jesus to you by having him work miracles and wonders and signs. And all of you know this." I mean, this is obvious. This is what this disciple is saying. God has already planned and decided that Jesus would be handed over to you, so you took him and had an evil man put him to death on the cross. Because Judas had turned that way. Judas had betrayed him. Judas had decided on his own that he was not going to serve God. It says, but God sent him free from death to raise him to life. Death could not hold him in its power. What David said are really the words of Jesus. And I want you to listen to this part. I always see the Lord near me, and I will not be afraid with him at my right side. Because of this, my heart will be glad. That doesn't sound like somebody that betrays. That sounds like somebody that knows who he is. That doesn't sound like to me somebody that doesn't know what the cross is about. Peter had seen, he stayed around long enough to witness, even though he denied, even though he had a shortcoming in his life, he realized at this point what the cross really meant and how things were going to work out. And so instead of taking and not having any hope, not having any life, not having any joy in his life, he realizes that now. So because of this, my heart will be glad, and my words will be joyful, and I will live in hope. The Lord won't leave me in the grave, and I am His Holy One, and He won't let my body decay. He has shown me the path of life, and He makes me glad by being near me. Words of David repeated by Peter. The words will be joyful. I will live in hope. I might die in this world, but I will be risen again. I will be raised from the dead so that I might live with Him. This isn't a man that doesn't know that He took our place. Where Judas couldn't see it, where Judas couldn't even imagine it, where there was no possibilities of joy or hope or life, and then death comes in, Peter is just the opposite. I want to ask you today, do you know that He took your place? Can you see the cross? Or is something standing in your way? So many times you know that it's there, and you know that there's provision, and you know that there's ways out. But we continue to do the same things over and over and over in our lives. And so then there's separation. And then there's no hope, and there's no joy. If you're in this place today, I want you just to listen to me for just a second. Be patient with me. And you've thought about taking your life. You thought there's no reason to live. But I want you to consider today Jesus. You say, I can't see Him. I don't know what He's about. I just know that I have had horrible things take place and happen to me, and I can't see Him. I don't know how to get to Him. On the other side of this, the things that you go through are joy. It doesn't have to be sorrow for you. It doesn't have to be loneliness for you. It doesn't have to be despair. You don't have to be discouraged today. On the other side of all of this, you can realize, you can see, we'll help you to that point where you know that he took your place. And that's what Peter had done. Even after the point of where he said, I don't know you, I don't know you, I don't know you, he came back to the place where he realized what the cross had done. And no longer did he let things separate him, but he tore those things down so that he could see the cross. And I'm telling you that when you get to this place in your life where you know what He's done for you, and then you begin to surrender everything to Him, that's where life starts to come in. That's where joy and happiness. And so if you're in this place today and you've considered that because your life you feel is so very bad, I'm asking you to tear down the walls and realize that he took our place today, and you don't have to feel the way that you do. You don't. You have people that sit beside you and that are in this room, and you rationalize it. Go ahead. You say, I don't know anybody in this room, and I don't have friends like you're talking. I'm by myself. No, you are not. Because the enemy will come in and he will sell you short for just a little. Your life is not for sale today. And there are people in this room that do care and that do want to be close to you and that do want to know what you're going through so that we can help you to the point where you see him on a cross, where you know he died for you so that you can have eternal life. He wants to spend that with you. That's what all this is about. He chose you so that he could spend eternity with you. He made you just the way you are. He wants you just the way you are because he loves you just the way you are. And I'm selfish too, because I want to spend eternity with you as well. Your husband or your wife or your friend or your child, those people around, they want to spend eternity with you. So life is worth living. I just want to say before we go this morning, my biggest fear is that somehow we put up this wall and we feel like we see the cross. We act like we know what the cross is about, but in reality, we're a lot more like Judas than we are Peter. Because we call ourselves a follower of Christ, but for a little amount, a little thing, a little enjoyment, a little fix. We have no problem selling our Christianity out. Today is about life. Today is about hope. Today is about eternity. And it's just us realizing that he took our place so that you and I can live. The question of the hour today. Will you be like Judas or will you be like Peter? The question of the hour today, will you respond to what God's doing in this place today? The question of the hour is, will you continue to be lonely or will you continue to sell short your life or will you respond to that as well? Totally up to you. I am only a messenger, and I honestly tell you, I don't know why God chooses me to do that. I don't. But it's been said, and you get to respond.